恭敬大德，济一切众生，
请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。
You can look if you like. If you want to watch. Will the Sangha, great virtue, out of compassion,
For the sake of this assembly and all living beings, how to leave suffering and attain bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Now I'll give you a line and you give it back. Namo tassa
Namo tassa
bhagavato
bhagavato
arahato
arahato
samma sambuddhassa.
Sama Sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed,
Homage to the blessed,
noble,
noble,
and perfectly enlightened one.
and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo Sadanto
Namo Sadanto
Suchedoye
Nujedoye
Olahodi
Alahadi
Samyao Sanputoshe.
Samyao Sambuddhosye.
Okay, those of you who can. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。And now on the screen, supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Okay, good job. Stand and half bow and thank you. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Fo Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui O Pu. One more time. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui. El sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内，佛法扬万亿国中，共寻其法界和平，利益报贪若后得。We're looking into the 10 practices chapter, and the topic, the 10 practices follow the 10 paramitas, or traditionally the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections, or the 6 or 10 ways to cross over. Number 3 is patience. Patience is a wonderful dharma, and this is something that Master Hua taught from beginning to end. In fact, he named it as one of his signature dharmas. He said, the only thing that allowed me to teach Americans was patience. He says, a great mind of patience. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do it, he said. He would have fallen short, and he would have, gotten, not to say angry, but he would have lost his will to teach, because Americans, we Western hippies had no background, nothing to bring to it. So Shifu taught us everything that we needed to know to be Buddhist practitioners, but he was a strong reformer of the Buddhist practices in China, critical of what became kind of church instead of Dharma. And that's not to say anything wrong with Chinese Buddhists. It's just any country, any culture where you repeat something for hundreds of years, it just gets stuck. It gets set in its ways. And even when it's time to change, it can't. So institutions are that way. The Roman Catholic Church is hard to change, even though they know they should. And military organizations just have a culture of doing things. This is the way it's done in our man's Navy, Mister. Yes, sir, sir. So Buddhism was a blank piece of paper when Master Hua came here. Mahayana, certainly. The only institution that existed, the only Buddhist institution, was the San Francisco Buddhist Church, which is the Jodo Shinshu, the Japanese Pure Land. And they arrived in San Francisco in 1898. And very quickly, the Japanese have this genius of mimicry, and they made the Japanese Buddhist church in San Francisco as much like a Christian church as possible, including hymns, including the preacher, including services and sermons, and just they did a really good job of turning it into a Japanese version of a Christian church, and they survived. My dissertation chairperson, Dr. Ronald Yukio Nakasone, was a Japanese Pure Land Jodo Shinshu minister from San Jose. So, yeah. Anyway, to get to our topic, let's open our text, and it is the 3rd practice, and it's on page 20. We have been doing responsive readings back and forth across the aisle, men's side, women's side, women's side, men's side. And I think we'll just continue that way. Everybody got a copy? And I want to say, if you do read the Chinese characters, feel free. And the English is a challenge. There are some of us here who would prefer to read the Chinese. Please go ahead. 如果你觉得看汉字对你的话就比较方便，比较容易呢，随便看汉字。我们这个翻译是临时的翻译，现在的翻译，我们还要努力，就翻译一个比较完整、比较标准的。所以你们想看汉字呢，随便看。甚至于你有什么问题呢？你看那个汉字觉得英文不圆满，麻烦就马上举手。我知道你不会，不过我给你可以啊，举手说法师，我觉得那个翻译有问题了，有毛病。Okay, so feel free. I'm giving people permission to go from the Chinese to correct the English. The English is our current best attempt, but it will definitely change in the future. We're counting on you young people to improve it as we go, to make it suit the culture more effectively. Okay? All right. So let's see. Last night the women began. Let's have the men start. I will do the lead voice. Jinro, sure, you want to be the lead voice? Okay. Okay, good. So, just hold that first sound, disciple. So everybody starts together. If you just jump in, people can't catch up. Okay, are we ready? Page 20, here we go. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's practice of non-opposition? This Bodhisattva always cultivates the dharmas of patience. He is humble and respectful. He does not harm himself or others or their relationship. He does not grasp after self, grasp after others, or grasp at their relationship. He is not attached to self, to others, or to their relationship. He also does not covet a reputation, benefits, or offerings. He only has this thought: I should constantly speak the Dharma for beings so that they leave behind all evil, semicolon, take a breath, so that they cut off greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, coverings, stinginess, jealousy, flattery, and deceit, and so that they constantly abide in forbearance and harmony. Okay, women's side, please continue.
Disciples of the Buddha.
Oh, hold that first sound. D. Give it, you're the cue. So everybody can fall right in behind you. Okay, here we go.
Disciples of the Buddha. In this practice, the Bodhisattva accomplishes such dharmas of patience as these. Suppose trillions of nayutas of asamkhyas of beings come to him, and each being produces trillions of nayutas of asamkhyas of mouths, and each mouth utters trillions of nayutas of asamkhyas of words, unhappy words, unwholesome words, displeasing words, undesirable words, words that are not benevolent or virtuous, words not of the wisdom of sages, words that do not accord with sagehood, words that sages stay far away from, words that are intensely detestable, and to slander and insult the Bodhisattva.
Okay. Further, suppose these beings, each with trillions of nayutas of asankhya's of hands, wield trillions of nayutas of asankhya's of weapons to assault and injure the Bodhisattva. Suppose this goes on for asankhya's of eons without cease. Take a breath. When the Bodhisattva has undergone such intense cruelty until all his hair stands on end and his life is about to end, he thinks, if my mind is swayed and confused by this torment, then I have not subdued myself, I have not guarded myself, I do not understand myself, I have not cultivated, I have not attained proper concentration or tranquility, I do not cherish myself, and I give rise to attachments. So how could I enable others to attain purity of mind? Women's side?
The Bodhisattva further reflects, in the past, for eons without beginning, I have dwelt in birth and death, and endured suffering and grief. As I reflect, too fast, in this way, I once again urge myself on, purify my mind, attain happiness, and discipline and collect myself. When I can abide in the Buddha Dharma, then I can cause beings to attain this Dharma as well. Moreover, he thinks, this body is still and empty, without a self or what belongs to self. It has no reality. It is empty in nature, and it is non-dual. The suffering and bliss that it experiences do not exist because all dharmas are empty.
Okay, the men take over until the last paragraph when we read that together. Ready? I should understand this and proclaim it far and wide for all beings so they can do away with these views. Therefore, although I have met with this bitter torment, I should endure it out of compassion for beings, to benefit beings, to make beings peaceful and happy, out of pity for beings, to gather in beings and not abandon them, to attain enlightenment myself and to bring others to enlightenment, so that my mind does not retreat and so that I may advance along the Buddha's way. Together, this is called the practice of non-opposition, the third practice of the Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Okay, back to page 20. So, patience, the paramita of patience, the perfection of patience, sometimes called patience under insult. That's a pretty good translation, actually. That was one of the first ones we did. It's renru. Ru is like insults. It's like if say, oh, yo mama fat, yo mama so fat, the yo mama jokes. That's an insult, right? Anybody know one? Yo mama so fat. Anybody yo mama jokes? Yeah, probably better not to. Yeah. So there's a whole category of jokes called yo mama jokes where you insult people's moms, and it usually leads to fist fights right away. So anyway, patience under insult is the Bodhisattva's third paramita, and as we have discovered in this amazing we heard today the word juicy, this juicy chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra. There's an extreme hypothetical case that is posited. Suppose, hypothetical means what if, imagine. It doesn't actually exist, but what if it did? What would you think? How would you react? And so it starts right out saying, page 20, this bodhisattva cultivates the dharmas of patience. There it is. That's this door. It's not generosity, but it's based on generosity. It's not precepts, but it's based on precepts. It's the third step. Because the bodhisattva has been giving and creating blessings and connections, because he has or she has patterned their life after the Buddha's description of a human, meaning precepts, he now has strength. He has a foundation. The foundation is in generosity and morality, based on kindness, ahimsa, and non-harming of anyone else because of desire. That's the foundation. And the patience part is the test of that foundation. Is it strong? It's designed to send that foundation deep so it can endure, because there's a long road ahead. Mostly teaching others takes a lot of patience. So that's what he's got. He cultivates the dharmas of patience. The sutra says, here's what we mean. Let's describe that patience. He's humble, internally, not arrogant, respectful externally towards others, looks at others and respects them, recognizes their potential Buddhahood. Now, look at these next 4 lines. Look at this description. He doesn't harm himself. He doesn't harm others. And then there's this third thing that the sutra mentions, which is the relationship. I find that really interesting, that it says there's me, there's you, and then there's this thing that we create only with the two of us. Now, married couples or solid partners know about that. I guess mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons know that third thing. Teachers and students can know this relationship thing. The sutra makes it overt. I think that's really, that's sophisticated, right? That's really subtle. that when you have a relationship with someone, that's a thing. And the bodhisattva practicing patience would not harm it, right? I mean, that's so interesting. Think about it. What have I done to harm relationships in the past? And I go, oh my God. That once, now that I think about it, it's like, whoa, I behaved as if that didn't exist. And selfishly, So he doesn't grasp after the self, but the self exists illusorily. He doesn't grasp after others, although they could be said, Doug Powers will tell you they only exist in the mind, and that's what Yogacara says. And he doesn't grasp at the relationship between them, and yet she can still work with it, because that's where you apply the paramitas for taking others across. And then you're not attached to self, others, or relationships. And then in the practice of patience, he doesn't advertise it. He doesn't want others to know, I'm practicing patience, right? Or offerings. So what an interesting description of the bodhisattva in relationship. This is Buddhism. This is the Mahayana. It's not the self-ending arhat who's after nirvana, get out of my way, bodhi or bust, like, no, this bodhisattva lives in relation, her vows have to do with taking others across so that they can cross over themselves. Not different. Okay, then, once again, into the mind. Takes you right into the mind. What does the bodhisattva think? It's like, thank you, Avatamsaka Sutra, for helping it. He says, I should speak Dharma for people. That's what I want to do. I want to explain. Now, speak Dharma, that's Chinglish. Shuo fa. I'm going to speak Dharma. What is it? So it's like talking in tongues, right? Glossolalia. Not really. No, it's not. It's, I'm going to explain principles, would be an actual English translation. I'm going to reflect practices, the Buddha's wisdom. That would be a good way to translate it. But look at what follows. So what? So afflictions, leave them. This is a list of the afflictions. There are said to be 28, of which there are 5 major afflictions: greed, anger, delusion, pride, doubt. Tan Chan Shi Man Yi, those are the 5 Gamban Fannao, 5 basic afflictions. But there is 23 others, and this is a big chunk of them, right? Evil, greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, covering, stinginess, jealousy, flattery, deceit. And so they can live in patience and harmony. So I want to point this out. Buddhism is not airy-fairy or romanticizing the mind. It says, you know what? Living beings have a lot of stuff they should get rid of. And the Bodhisattva would say, me too. I'm getting rid of it as I, look at what the mind contains. This is such a true to life, nitty gritty, real world description of the contents of the mind. Greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, covering, stinginess, jealousy, flattery, and deceit. Nice to meet you, contents of the mind. Where have you been hiding? Oh, we're not hiding. We're right there. You just don't like to look at it. This is the shadow. People who study psychology, particularly Jungian for that matter, but Freudian as well, look at this and go, oh, that's remarkably sophisticated. Doing a psychological inventory of the mind. Yeah. Living beings are full of those fannao, afflictions, we call them, troubles, blues, miseries, right? Things that the mind contains that are not pretty and beautiful and not cool and not groovy until they're cultivated away. That's, here's a way to think of it. Put it in an analogy. Gardens, if you just say, okay, I'm going to grow a garden, go down and, plow up the ground and water it and then wait. Watch what grows. All kinds of living things will grow. You may not want any of them. They may all be weeds unless like a volunteer, Maple's helicopter lands in it, or something. But the mind will grow all kinds of greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, covering, stinginess, jealousy, flattery, and deceit without effort, happily, a lot of it, a bumper crop. You'll get all that stuff if you just let it go. If you don't become a good gardener. We've got that stuff in our minds, and it's really true. So I just want to point out that the sutra looks at it right in the mirror. Here we are. Take a good look. That's so interesting, isn't it? It's not some rose-colored glasses, some gauzy, puffy, beautiful mind that, let's all be compassionate. Yeah, after you get rid of the greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, covering, stinginess, jealousy, flattery, and deceit, right? But the wisdom and compassion we're looking for comes directly from those afflictions. Fan nao ji puti says afflictions are bodhi when they're turned over, when they're cultivated, composted, turned into fertilizer for what we also want. We took the precepts the other day, officially in front of the Buddha. Those are the seeds that bring up crops that we want from the same piece of land. These things, when they are left behind, it says, ling li yi che e. When you leave them, when you transform them, from that very same piece of ground comes the stuff we want. Okay? So, then he goes on. He says, disciples of the Buddha, back to the narrative, the Bodhisattva accomplishes dharmas of patience such as these. Do you get rid of those things overnight? No, you have to be patient as you cultivate them away. Okay, at this point, once he says, I'm going to cultivate patience, comes the test. Just like yesterday we saw, right? The test comes. And look at the outrageous description of the test. Are you ready? Trillions of nayutas of asamkhya's. Nayuta is a number. Asankhya is a number. Those are 0, 0, 0, 0. Beings come to them, and what do? Those beings all produce mouths, and each mouth starts to swear at him, starts to scold him, starts to shout profanity, 4-letter word, just the worst kind of yo mama joke comes out. Trillions of nayutas of words, and the sutra tells us exactly what they are. They are unhappy, unwholesome, displeasing, undesirable, not benevolent, not wise, not according with sagehood. Words that sages stay far away from. Words that are intensely detestable, and words that are not fit to hear. And each of those words slanders and insults the Bodhisattva. Right? I mean, this is so good. This is the Avatamsaka Sutra saying, yeah, it's a little exaggerated, maybe, a little exaggerated, but it gets the point that he runs into flack. This is somebody comes and insults him, like a lot, for a long time, with words that are really hard to hear. And guess what our hero does? He is patient. He applies patience. He doesn't move. What does he do? Flip it over. Not only, so the sutra goes on, not only do they slander him and insult him, then these beings produce hands holding clubs and blackjacks and tire irons, and they insult and injure, beat the bodhisattva. And then it goes on for countless eons without cease. It doesn't stop. Okay, this is the sutra giving us these outrageous hypotheticals. So a situation, Doug Powers is always talking about according with the karma of the conditions, right? So under these conditions, what does the bodhisattva do? What would you do? Put yourself in there. People are insulting you with words you don't want to hear. They know your button and they're pushing it. And then they beat you, beat your body. So your mind, your spirit, and your body are all under attack. And what does he do? The sutra puts us back in his mind. The bodhisattva undergoes intense cruelty. His hair stands on end. His life is about to end. And he says, in a calm voice, if I am confused or swayed by this, then I haven't done a very good job of cultivating. I haven't subdued myself. I haven't guarded myself. I don't understand myself. I haven't cultivated. I haven't attained real samadhi or tranquility. I don't cherish myself and I'm attached. How could I possibly help anybody else in this circumstance? Right? So the bodhisattva heroically reflects and says, what are my choices here? I could get really upset. I could, call a lawyer. I could dial 911. I could pull out a Glock 17 and shoot back. You know, he doesn't do any of those things. He doesn't practice his kung fu. He says, yeah, the problem's with me. Of course I'm going to take this. And then he goes deeper, right? And he says, I've been living in birth and death for so long, and I've died over and over and over again. And so what is this? I'm still alive. It hurts, but I'm still alive. So I'm going to give myself another exhortation, purify my mind, get happy, discipline myself, collect myself. Because why? I want to speak Dharma. I want to teach others. And if my mind moves, I can't. I'm not qualified. So even though the pressure and the pain is so intense in the sutra, it really paints it extremely, right? It's exaggerated to this extreme point. Just like the first practice, the beings came and said, can we eat your body? And the second practice, they said, oh, what do you like? Here's a lot of it. You really like it. You like this? And then now they give him pain and misery and suffering and grief. And he says, I want to help others, so I can't move my mind. No matter how much it hurts, I'm not going to move. That's his resolve. When I can live in the Buddha Dharma, I can cause others to get it too. When I can abide in the Buddha Dharma, he says, let's see, 上次调摄, 自能安住于佛法中, when I myself can abide in peace within the Dharma, then I can share it with others. And until then, I can't. So this is patience. Patience. Okay, now at this point, we saw in the last two, there's a Dharma reflection. We leave the moment, the personal testimony of the Bodhisattva, and now it goes into a Dharma description. And what is it? He says, you know what? My body is actually empty and still. There's no self anywhere in the body, or what belongs to self. It's not real. It's empty. It's not two. There's no two duality in it. The suffering and bliss that I experience doesn't exist because all dharmas are empty. There's the yogacara. There's the prajna, wisdom here. So he says, I should understand this and tell others about it too, so they can get rid of this view of the body that it's real. So even though I've met this incredible torment, I will endure it out of compassion. My feeling for others is stronger than my aversion to what I'm undergoing. So I'll wait. I want to benefit others, make them happy, pity them, gather them in, not leave them behind. I want to wake up and help others wake up. So my mind doesn't retreat and I make progress on the path. That's it. That's the Bodhisattva's third practice, right? So how amazing. What a motivation. And again, let me point out again that this chapter is so incredible that these hypothetical situations are laughably extreme. They're just the sutra gives us these cartoonish, unbearable situations, and the Avatamsaka Sutra. This is Mahayana Dharma, which I find just, I don't know, charming is not the word, but fun is not the word, but it's like all of those things that we can read a sutra. And let me give you one situation where this might be applied. last night we talked, or the first night we talked about someone who gives up their body without thought of benefit. And then we said, like your mom, when she gave birth and when she raised us. And tonight I would say, imagine sitting in Chan and your knees are on fire. And it hurts so bad. And you think, this is crazy. This is like, I thought we weren't supposed to mortify the flesh. Where I'm mortifying my flesh. This is not right. And ding, oh, the pain went away. Where did the pain go? You know, like, can you be patient? Can you apply this when you're sitting there and your knees are just telling you you're crazy to sit there? You know, so there are this, although, you know, as I say, there's kind of a cartoon description of beings with a Sankhya, trillions of mouths shouting at you. That's just a description of what it's like when we're, for the sake of the Dharma, undergoing transformations. And the issue is patience. Can we be patient? Can you wait it out? Okay, done. Jin Chuan Jin Wei, you want to reflect on? Need a microphone.
So when me and Jing Wei went over this chapter beforehand, Jing Wei just told me, you should tell your story in AO. I said, what? What story in AO? Remember the time you got angry? Oh, yeah, okay. So I thought, okay, maybe I shared a story where I wasn't patient. So I was working in the administration office as a layman. I just got to CDTB. And people know this is 20-some years ago. So at that time, people know Mr. John Chu and Joey Wei. They all work in the front office. So I'm working in the front office, and I'm there with Mr. Ju. And he's, you know, writing something on the side. And I'm on the other side of the desk doing some other work. And this man walks in, very upset. So he comes in and starts to scold Mr. Ju. He's like, you know, I came here to see 10,000 Buddhas, and my room is so dirty, and everything's so wrong. It just scolds Mr. Ju for like 5 minutes. And I'm just standing there on the side. I'm like, this isn't right. You know, Mr. Ju, he's such a kind-hearted, you know, cultivator. He really devoted his life to 10,000 Buddhas. And he's just there, actually patient. He's got a very cool exterior. He just looks very cool. Just look at the guy. The guy's just scolding him. It's like scolding CDB. And like, gosh, this guy has no idea where he is. Finally, I see in my heart, I can't take this anymore. So I walk over to this guy. And when I get upset, I'm not the kind of person who gets like angry, like blow up. I get very cool. You know, and my words are like a dagger. It's, you know. So I look at this guy directly in the eyes, and I say, I think I may be 20, I graduated 2005, so that's 25, 26. Actually, I found out he's a Taiwan professor. He's actually a professor from Taiwan. But anyways, I walk over to this. I'm a little kid, you know. I look at him directly in the eye, and I say to him, do you know where you are? And he looks at me, he's like, whoa, who's this guy? He says, you're at the city of 10,000 Buddhas. People give their lives to this place. If you don't want to be here, get out. You don't treat this place like a hotel. This guy was just shocked. He looked at me, this guy, I was like, his jaw dropped. This guy's trying to say something, but he looked at me and he just couldn't say anything. And Mr. Ju slowly walked over to the donation box, and they put the donations in the bin, right? But it's still stuck on the lip. So he fishes out the donation for the room, hands it back to him. And I can see he's kind of shaken, and he walks out. You know, and I remember Mr. Ju looked at me, he's like, wow, what happened there? I said, yeah, it's just not right. So I'm there in the AO though, and I feel to myself, you know, I feel that wasn't quite right. You know, I think it's kind of about patience. I don't know. I felt like I kind of got upset. You know, I think I really kind of hurt his feelings. So later I thought to myself, you know, I have to repent. I have to apologize. So I remember I got to the dining hall, and I see him sitting in the back corner. So I thought, and this is my chance to apologize, right? So I start walking towards him. And I can see as I'm walking towards him, his eyes get bigger and bigger. He's like, uh-oh, what is going to happen to me now, you know?
I didn't finish.
I didn't even, yeah. No, but I walk up to him and say, you know, Moga, I'm really sorry. I know I said pretty strong words. You know, I really want to apologize. I don't mean to hurt your feelings. You know, I really want to encourage you being here. But I can see he still had this kind of look in his eye, like, I gotta be careful around you, you know? And I remember going back and just reflecting on it. It's like, that's something, although I really believed in, I was kind of reflecting on it. Being at the 16,000 Buddhas, being a young man, kind of very idealistic. And I think if somebody was criticizing me, I don't get as affected, but somebody's criticizing someone and something I really care about. And somehow that pushed a button that's like, I've got to defend this, you know? And I think that's this, in a certain sense, kind of looking at this list now, there's definitely anger, there's some stupidity, there's also some arrogance in the sense of, you know, I know better, you know, this is what I think is a good place, and, you know, covering and so forth. And so I realized that's not really a skillful response. And I don't go into so much now, but I think over the years, me and Jing Weishu have learned some nonviolent communication and body awareness and so forth. And I realized rather than getting riled up, because what I reflected back is when the person started talking, I could see my body starting to tense up. You know, it's like, and then I start a story in my mind. This isn't right. You know, there's a moment in the mind. Doug often says, you just give license to yourself. This is it. I'm given a piece of my mind, you know. And so I realized instead I could have actually relaxed, gone to him and listened. So sounds like, you know, your room is not clean, you know, and you're feeling really unhappy about it. You know, how about I go there and clean the room with you? We can go clean up the space. You know, I know you really came here with sincerity to want to cultivate here the 60,000 Buddhas. So rather than me coming in with this kind of force of of fighting and of opposition, I could have come in with a certain amount of humility and respect and kindness. And so I think just as a story, the sutra says, you know, in this kind of very extreme situation when there's, you know, millions and trillions of beings scolding you, but I find it's in these little moments, you know, when somebody says something and you can just catch it in your heart, that's like, those are the moments we have to catch. And then if we can use some method, I found Guanyin recitation super helpful to kind of turn it, then we can actually turn a situation that could be actually a fight into what it says here in the sutra, into forbearance and harmony, where we can actually work together for everyone's well-being. My well-being, his well-being, the well-being of the relationship. Yeah.
So reflecting on this.
I'm going to take a layer off.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Reflecting on this passage and the whole ongoing theme is for me coming is freedom. Actually, it's the radical freedom. The radical now is kind of popular word. It's extreme freedom. Heng Sure mentioned that we have a chance to visit concentration camp quite recently, a few weeks ago, Treblinka, when it was the last way for most Polish Jews, like almost 1 million people were killed. As we know, another famous concentration camp, Auschwitz, even more. Not just Jews, but many, many people. We can say it was ends of humanity. And I want to quote this man, we probably heard about him, Viktor Frankl, who was the survivor of Auschwitz, and he very beautifully put this, that everything can be taken from a man, but the one thing, the last human freedom, to choose his own attitude in any given circumstances, to choose his own way. This is radical freedom, that even the situation like that, like concentration camp, when you lose any external freedom, right? You have your safety is under attack, your health, your clothes, you don't have clothes, you don't even know that you survived the next day. And he chose not to hate those people. And he wrote amazing book, what I recommend you, The Man's Searching for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. This amazing, inspiring story. And here we are not in concentration camp, I hope, but sometimes we can make our mind very, very painful. And we are now about, I think, this day 3? And day 3 and 4 is the most tough, actually, in the retreats, as you noticed. Things become a little bit more familiar. We don't have this excitement, this Oregon forest. It's okay, it's nice forest. It's just like, wow, look at this forest. It's okay, another way going to the half camp and reciting, gosh, so long. And raining. So we can complain on the weather, and many, many things. But it's very difficult to get along with it ourselves, as the Reverend Heng Sure said. And some of you heard that story talking about embarrassing stories. And it was my early days when I came to City of 10,000 Buddhas. It was like, my dream is fulfilled. And, I have this honeymoon 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks, and I remember myself in this organic farm, very cold, and I wear just 2 layers. It was February, because I'm hardcore cultivator, of course. I want to show. Shaking from the cold, and it was very hard, actually, soil. It was, I think, broken too. Like everything in the city is broken. And I tried to make a hole there and feel so miserable internally. It's like, gosh, I feel so lonely here. And start crying. I'm not a crier. It's not often happen. But sometimes happen. It was at the moment. And the tears, dying is, gosh, I miss my girlfriend. Oh, God, she was not that bad, actually, And God, and I get a message from her, email, I met, he's my friend. I won't say names. He invited me to his concert in another city, and I have hotel and everything. I said, oh no, what? He's very, very famous singer in Poland. Accomplished. I don't know what could be equivalent in the United States, like Justin Timberlake or
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen. It's like everyone knows him, and she's going to date with him. This is my inner Netflix running the drama. I wouldn't say later. It was actually quite funny how they end up, but it was just one layer, but was layers. What I noticed, what happening in my heart, I was grieving. Not just her, my friends, my grandma, people, things what I used to do, and here I'm with my mind, alone, in this cold morning. And it was very tough. And Samuel heard, I came to Doug Powers. He gave a talk, and with my broken link, I couldn't speak at the time. Also, another problem. I cannot communicate with anyone. Doug, I don't know. Doug, if every moment you, in your cultivation, you are comfortable, you don't cultivate. He say something like this. But it was right medicine for me, because I find out that, in fact, all my life I ran away from my experiences. Everything was tough. I find a way. I stopped drinking, so I can find another toys to distract me and don't look at my heart and mind. And here is like a septic tank who was broken in the last year, direct into your face. And and I didn't develop any skills how to meet that, how to be with it. And so to finish, to be in the session, that fact that we seeing those things and could be tough and not beautiful, it's okay. We have an opportunity to look at in our heart. And we found, Jintruan and myself, very important is to really relax and create the space around this experience. Instead of to say, I should get rid of this, how I can make this belong to the experience. I don't have to fight it. I don't have to use anger. I can relax, and the guanyin is an amazing way to do it. With guanyin, it not stay that long, but we have choice. So we have that radical freedom every moment. You don't have to choose our habitual pattern. We can use guanyin to transform our inner habits.
Awesome. With that in mind, what does the Bodhisattva use? What did he use? What was it? A vow? Yeah. You could say it that way. Again? 4 patiences, yes. What is this? So what is the source of the patience? Compassion. What is that? What's the source of the compassion? I mean, in theory, yeah, but more specifically. Like if I do this, I'm going to push my microphone into my ears. What? What is it? Yeah, in theory. More specific. The sutra tells us. What does he say? He says, wow, living beings, I want to speak Dharma for them. And so I need to get rid of all the living being stuff in me. And that's the shadow, Jungian analysts would say, the stuff about yourself you don't like that you shove into the bag, that you can't admit, all that stuff in the shadow. And I read the list like 6 times, right? All those things. And he sees that stuff in himself. And I'm going to get rid of it so I can speak Dharma for living beings. He wants to give Dharma because why? He's been through giving. He's been through precepts. Now he's at patience. So the tests, now his foundation is solid. So the tests come on how solid is the foundation. He now wants to do something. That's where the compassion comes from. He's decided, I want to speak Dharma for living beings. And so he says, whatever it takes. Right? And with that statement comes the test. And it really takes a lot of patience. So the compassion is, you could say, from a desire, but it's a purified desire. And in the process of doing this, he's not attached to the relationship. He's not attached to self, to the living beings, or the relationship. He's doing it from a place of purity. That's what's amazing about the sutra. The perfection of giving, this is the paramita, means 2 things. It means perfection, and it also means to go across, depending on how you divide the word paramita or paramita. So paramita, you Sanskrit scholars from DRBU certainly know this is true. It divides into 2 things. It's either the perfection of giving precepts and patience, or giving precepts and patience that cross over to the other shore. So the perfection of it, when you do it to perfection, you empty out the gift, you empty out the receiver, you empty out the self who gives. Like, wow, that's perfect giving. So apply that to Christmas, apply that to birthdays. Well, I didn't give you anything this year because I wanted to make it pure. I wanted, my intention was pure. But Dad, so that doesn't work. So it's like, it's not so easy, but the sutra shows us how it's done to get to perfection. To get to the perfection of patience, you don't see your body. Right? There's some key words there where he says, it was on page 23. The body is still and empty. There's no self. There's no thing that belongs to self. It's not real. It's empty in nature, non-dual. The suffering and bliss that I experience, and I'm experiencing suffering because they're beating me. It's not that it doesn't hurt. It's that he sees it as empty. Dharmas are empty. I should understand this and then teach it as well. So these views of self and body and etc. can be emptied out. So even though I've met this torment, he doesn't say it doesn't hurt or that it's not being hit. He is. But I should endure it out of compassion for others. So he can explain for others that the body is empty. That's like, right? So it's like, oh man. The sutra humanizes this experience. So somebody said to Master Empty Cloud once, said, Sherpo, you're sitting there for hours and hours and hours. Just, your legs don't hurt, right? And he says, what do you mean they don't hurt? They hurt every time. So you think, wow, this great sage who can meditate forever, his legs never hurt? No, he's patient with the pain. And he goes through a pain gate, which you can experience in Chan, but to say that somehow there's a magic, the real meditators don't hurt, the real meditators hurt. They are able to use the perfection of patience. They empty it out, the experience. Like, whoa, suddenly that's... Okay, so what else did they use? Well, there was this guy called Doug Powers who had a big beard and long hair, and he came into Gold Mountain one day, and he needed a translator. So he said, he says, come with me and Master Hua. So I'm there. He said, Shervo. He says, I need help. He says, I came close to losing my temper in class the other day. Something that wasn't mentioned today in the list of Doug Powers' accomplishments is that he spent 36 years teaching 17-year-olds at Berkeley High School. He is the infamous Mr. Powers, the legendary Mr. Powers, who taught how many students probably over the years? About 9,000 students, all of whom know Mr. Powers. And so, what was it you said to Sherpa that day? I was the translator, but remind me.
I said I have no control over my patients. I mean, I'm at the brink of impatience every second, and I have no control over it. Something like that, which was true. So,
Okay, that's the disclaimer.
I wasn't making anything up. Yeah.
Right. So what happened?
Well, he said, he said, I have a mantra. So he said, I said, I need a mantra. Yeah, I said, I need a special mantra for my patients. And so, and you've all heard this, a lot of you have. And then he responded, he says, I do, I have a mantra for you. And so I said, everybody, there's a bunch of people there. I was in the Buddha hall there. Everybody said, a special mantra. Namo, nada. No, patience. I got to have patience. Don't get angry, sopo ho. So that became a famous mantra. Actually, a lot of people use that mantra. And that day, he just came up with that out of the blue there with as a special, with special powers.
Doug Powers.
Can you mention how your patients were tested by the students?
What's that?
How your patients was tested?
Tested.
Oh, well, any of you can go teach 17-year-olds, 5 classes of 40, 17-year-olds, of a cross-section of kids from Oakland, Richmond, Berkeley Hills and stuff, and do that for 40 years. And I won't have to explain to you the problem of your patients, right? So, I mean, it's just built into the situation. I mean, there's no way that if you're not really patient, you're not going to judge or explode or you know, I mean, you're going to do something that breaks the relationship. The key to teaching is that you're trusted, and you try to set up a relationship where the authority is based on trust, right? So if you get angry, you break the trust. And then when you break that trust, the problem is whatever you had been doing before, they become much more suspicious of it, and it's much harder to get it back. I mean, it's really hard to get it back. So, you know, getting angry really destroys relationships.
What Doug said to Shervo at the time, I always kind of have to ground his theories in reality. So here's what he said. He said, Shervo, there's this big tall kid. He's as tall as I am, and he's full of that hormones. And I said, okay, everybody, open your books to page 14. And he stood up and he said, I ain't opening shit. Spit on the floor. And you didn't, that way, you know, I'm paraphrasing. All right. So, and Doug said, and Shervo, I didn't know what to do because this was a challenge, you know. So Shervo, what should I do? And Shervo said, I have the first English language mantra, which I will transmit to you. And then Shervo told him, and he said, okay, let's hear it. And Doug said, Shervo, that was only once. He said, say it again. Patience, gotta have patience. Don't get angry. Sopoha. Let's hear it. And Doug said, Sopoha? Come on, try it. Patience. Wrote it down. Right? Gotta have patience. Don't get angry. Sopoha. Go use that. And so Doug said, thank you, Sherfu, and went off back to class. And then like 3 or 4 days later, he returned and said, I can translate this. So now you correct me if I'm telling it wrong. So he said, Sherfu, it really worked. It really worked. He said, the same kid, he knew he was going to, he said, I ain't going to open that book. And Doug says, oh, okay. Doug says, I recited the mantra. I remembered, and I went to myself, patience. And I knew what to do. And I said to the kid, okay. He said, that's fine. I'll sit down. You teach. And I dragged him in front of the class, and I said, you teach. And I sat in his seat. And he is 17 years old. He's like, oh, I can't teach. And he got embarrassed, and he sat down. And I said, okay, well, in that case, open to page 17. And it was the mantra. Is that accurate?
It sounds like something could happen. I mean, I can't remember that kind of detail of what happened in a given.
I remember.
exchange.
I translated.
But that is very possible. That sounds. I used to also get their mothers there. You know, if it really got bad, I called their mothers and asked the mother to sit next to them in class. You know.
That's the patience mantra. Can everybody do it? Let's hear it. Patience. Gotta have patience. Don't get angry. Okay, sopohe is svaha in Chinese, right? Svaha is how you close most mantras. If you look, start with namo or namaha. Namo sadanto suchet namo halada, right? And they conclude with sopohe or svaha or soha, which means everything successful, everything accomplished, everything auspicious. It's the concluder, yeah, sopoha. So the patience mantra works. Marty and I, Heng Chao and I, are bowing outside San Luis Obispo, and this little Volkswagen comes put up as we're bowing on this long. Actually, the cover of Highway Dharma Letters is the spot, if you know that cover, and this little VW Beetle, and the guy pulls up, and he pulled off to the side of the road. Sadly, directly behind him was a Hell's Angel on a big chopper. It's like, and the Volkswagen pulls over, and the chopper has to swerve to get around him. So this guy, he goes up and he parks his bike. He comes stomping back, chains and black leather in his jacket, and he stands over the Volkswagen, and he's so tall that the Volkswagen is just, the window is at his belt, right? It's like, so he takes his fist and he goes, BAM! And the roof of the Volkswagen goes, like that. And inside the Volkswagen is this little guy. And he looks out the window, has to look up to see the face of the Hell's Angel. And the angel says, "You almost made me crash," he said. And then he looks over at the two monks across the road and he says, "And you're hazards to navigation." He says, "I had to turn you all into hamburger," he says. And we're like, Namo Guan Shui Pusa. Which tune should I use? Nah. In a situation like this, the karma of the conditions, I need to say. So, and the guy, there's a moment, and the guy's like, "You're lucky I'm feeling good today." And gets in his bike. Away he goes. So the guy, the door opens, and he comes out, and he says, comes across the road, he says, "Hi, guys." He says, "I'm sorry, that was not very auspicious. My name is Tom Halls. I'm a reporter for the San Luis Obispo Express." He says, "Could I interview you guys?" He said, "But before we get into business, let me ask you, I should have stood up for myself, right? I just let that guy walk all over me. What do you say?" And Marty says, "Actually, Tom, I think it's a good thing that you stayed in the car." That guy probably could have turned us all into hamburgers. So he says, "Yeah, well," he says, "I have a temper myself. I don't know what to do with it. He says, I'm my wife and my kids and my boss, they know that I got an explosive temper." And I says, I guess maybe it's a good thing that I didn't get angry this time. Yeah. So he said, what do you do?" And Marty goes, "Ah." He says, "Well, our teacher gave us this mantra. He gave it to this guy named Doug Powers. And when we get angry, what we do? Patience, gotta have patience. Don't get angry, sopoho." Tom pulls out his little notebook. "Hey, that's pretty good. How do you spell sopoho?" He says, "Can you say it again?" "Patience, I gotta just..." "And you just recite that, right?" "Yeah, recite it until your temper just calms down. 3 times, 5 times, as much as you need." He says, "That's really good." "Well," he says, "I got to interview you for the newspaper. So what are you doing?" So we gave an interview and got in his Volkswagen and put, away he goes. And 7 days later, down the road, we were 7 miles up Highway 1. Hearing Tom Halls, the reporter for the San Luis Obispo Express. He comes out, he says, "Hey, monks." He says, "I got to tell you," he says, "that mantra, it really works." It really works. He says, "I was, we had a deadline the other day. I was in the newsroom." And he says, "My boss got in my face and said, 'You got to get the work done. Come on, we're on a deadline.'" And he said, all my colleagues, they knew that was the moment when I usually the atomic bomb goes off because he used pressures, But this time was different. I went, patience. How does it go? Gotta have patience. Don't get angry. And I recited a couple times. And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry I'm late. I'll do my best to get it in, And the colleagues look around. And the boss said, "No worries. Let's all go out for pizza," he said. It was such a change in the atmosphere. And then I got home, and my wife burned the roast. She said, I just was late. I had to pick up the kids, and I'm so sorry. And the kids kind of ran for cover because they knew this is when I explode, And I said, "Nah, no worries. Let's all go out for pizza, So he says we had pizza twice that day, but it was totally worth it. Patience, gotta have. He says, "It's made a change in my life. Thank you, and thank that guy. What's his name? Doug or something." So that's the true story that happened. The patience mantra really works. Let's hear it. Patience, gotta have patience. Don't get angry. So Chinese. 忍耐,需要忍耐,切莫生气. Bingo.
Master, did Heng, the angel came again or not?
Say,
Hence angels show up again.
Would he come back? He didn't come back. But there's multiple angels. We had or David Rounds had an encounter. We'll share that later. Yeah, so we got, in the Mahayana tradition, the hero of patience is Mila Pusa, right? And it's, let's see here, the old fool is one of these legends. And the old fool has a method for dealing with affliction, and he practices patience. And there's a famous, actually he's embodied as Maitreya Bodhisattva, the hemp bag monk, right? You know what he looks like? And let's see, why can't we find it? Oh, I know, here we go. So he's got this big stomach, big belly, and the big belly doesn't come from loving a lot of food. It's not the reason. It's the old fool. Here we go. We'll find it right there. Here it is. So it's because he can endure. Anybody go to Taiwan to Taipei Fajie in the dining room? You know that one? Inside the dining room at Taipei Fajie, there's a couplet in the dining room, matched couplets. And it's Du Da Neng Rong Rong Yi Qie. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. This couplet is a separate one. Du Da Neng Rong Rong Yi Qie Nan Rong Zhi Shi. Anybody know the Shalian? 开口便笑，笑一切世界可笑之人. Right? His belly is big, that can contain 度大能容, everything in the world that is ridiculous. The second line is he opens his mouth and laughs at all the people in the world who are laughable. So that's Maitreya. And here's his song. You want to move it when you get a chance? The old fool wears tattered clothes, fills his belly with tasteless food, patches his robe to keep out the cold, and as things come, so they go. His belly's big 'cause he can hold. Praise so hot, flame so cold, splits his face in a smile so full at the situations he finds laughable. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. If someone scolds the old fool, he simply agrees. Someone hits the old fool, he smiles and falls down on his knees. Spit in his face, he lets it dry. He's not upset, you save your energy. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. His belly's big 'cause he can hold. Praise so hot, flame so cold, splits his face in a smile so full at the situations he finds laughable. The jewel of patience, it's a pearl so rare. Now you've heard of his patience gong fu. Maitreya wants to share it with you. If you set this aside and go seeking the Tao, I gotta ask you, who's the old fool? Anyhow. So that there are famous patience individuals. In fact, in the Vajra Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the patient immortal shows up. And the patient immortal is somebody who gets the king of Kalinga, starts to cut off parts of his body because the king suspects that the patient immortal is out there to seduce his concubines who are on a picnic. And he cuts off his fingers, cuts off his nose, and says, every time he slices off something, he says, I bet you hate me now, don't you? You're angry, aren't you? And the patient immortal says, no, not angry. And the king progressively gets more and more angry as he can't move this guy's mind. And then at a certain point, the gods and the dragons can't bear it, and they start throwing Vajra thunderbolts at the king of Kalinga, you know. And so Jim should be there turning this whole thing into a video. Wouldn't it be good? So yeah, the Vajra Sutra illustrated, yeah. So anyway, at that point, the king it gets really scared, and so he bows down and says, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And it's one of these magical things in folklore called the moment of truth, and all his body reassembles itself. It's an act of truth. Do people wear this trope, this meme in storytelling? So in folklore, so this act of truth, he says, by my truth that I am not angry, my body will reassemble itself, and it does. So this is a famous global kind of meme that happens. Anyway, so the patient immortal says, I'm going to cross you over first in the future. And sure enough, the king returns as Ajñata Kaundinya, the first of the 5 monks, who hears the Dharma after the Prince Siddhartha becomes a Buddha and teaches the first time. So this interesting affinities, relationships. So that's there are multiple instances of patience under insult, extreme insult in the Mahayana, and this is one of them. Sherfu in his commentary here talks about the extreme patience of the Bodhisattva and how he can cut off pieces of flesh to feed wild animals out of compassion. And again, we say, kids, don't try this at home. You know, it's not the case that we are bodhisattvas who can do that. So I remember once a bhikshu who I will not name because he's still around as a layman in Los Angeles, the very first Gold Wheel Monastery. He heard about the bodhisattva in the Lotus Sutra who lights his body on fire. He heard about this and he said, Sherfu, I'd like to burn a finger off. Can I do it? Could I do it, Sherfu? Sherfu says, you Americans, he said, you'll try anything. He says, you have no idea. He says, as soon as the pain of that, if you don't have deep samadhi, as soon as the pain of your burning finger reaches your nervous system, you're going to shout and scream. And he says, you will not succeed. He says, don't presume. Don't assume that the bodhisattva and you are the same. You can set foot on that path and cultivate towards it, but know your own strength. No, you may not burn your finger off, he said. Oh, okay, sure. Can I have an extra piece of cake at lunch? Yes. Yeah, so. Pat. You know. So, yeah. So what about that bodhisattva in the Lotus Sutra? You know about him? What's his name? Medicine King, who has extraordinary patience and lights his body on fire and it burns for countless eons. You know? So that's another kind of level of devotion or something. But anyway, it's not for the faint of heart. But there's a wonderful song, again, if you don't mind, there's a great patience song. And in the Lotus Sutra, there is another hero whose name is Never Despise, the Bodhisattva Changbuching Pusa. And he practices patience under extreme insult. And there were two songwriters at Tassajara. They both passed away recently, sadly. So, but the song is this wonderful Dharma song. There are, like She Carries Me. This is one of those Dharma songs that is out there. And our late Dharma brother, Alan Sanoki, recorded this and sang it the best. So, Changbuching Pusa he used to bow to everyone he met. And he said, "You are going to be a Buddha in the future, so I'll bow to you now." And the song describes the story from the Lotus Sutra. This is actually the text of the Lotus Sutra, that people didn't receive these bows patiently. They reviled him, they spit at him, they kicked him and chased him out of wherever he was. But he never quit. He just kept on bowing to them and said, "I don't dare disparage you or look down on you because you're going to be a Buddha in the future." That was his practice. So he bowed and gave them a prediction. And it was not a popular practice, to say the least. There's a book called the Lotus Sutra that you really ought to know about. A holy book that has the power to remove all fear and doubt. And the book tells the story of a man who means the world to me, who could just as well have been a woman, except for male hegemony. And they called him the Bodhisattva never disparage, the Bodhisattva never despise. And I'm making it my ambition to see the world through his pure eyes. And there's a chorus, and you can join me. He says, "I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length. You only see your weaknesses, I only see your strengths. I would never despise you or put you down in any way. 'Cause it's clear to me, I can plainly see, you'll be a Buddha someday. Amitabha." Now the Bodhisattva never disparaging from countless kalpas in the past. In the time of the counterfeit Dharma, he was something of an outcast. 'Cause the monks and nuns of his time were known for their arrogance and vanity. And these were the folks who exercised great power and authority. But my boy never concerned himself if they treated him like a freak. 'Cause he bowed to everybody equally, and these are the words he'd speak. You join me? "I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length. Where you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strengths. I would never despise you or put you down in any way. 'Cause it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. Amitabha." Okay, the story continues. He never read or recited the scriptures much. He only liked to practice respect. But the monks and nuns of his time didn't meet it like you might expect. They cursed him and they reviled him, and they wished that he would go. 'Cause they all had self-esteem issues, like everyone else I know. And they beat him and pelted him with clubs and stones, tried to drive him away. But he would just run off a safe distance, then he would turn around and say, "You know what to do. I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length. For you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strengths. I would never despise you or put you down in any way. 'Cause it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. Amitabha. Okay, this has one of the happiest conclusions of any folk song I know. And so it went on for years and years. He was the target of scorn and abuse. But still our hero never shed no tears or wondered what's the use. Till he came to the end of his natural lifespan and he lay down fixing to die. And he heard the Holy Lotus Sutra being preached up in the sky, and his life was extended for millions of years. He's living to this day. And in the pages of the Lotus Sutra, you still can hear him say, join me, I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length. Where you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strengths. I would never despise you or put you down in any way. 'Cause it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. 'Cause it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. Amitabha, Amitabha. Encore. Isn't that a good one? That's such a good song. The Holy Lotus Sutra being preached up in the sky. That's a good song. So, patience, that's the story tonight. And what an amazing sutra the Avatamsaka is. Who knew that it contained these accessible instructions? This is how to practice the Bodhisattva path. And takes you right into the thoughts of this sublime expression of humanity at its best. The Avatamsaka Bodhisattva is an expression of what people can aspire to. It is gender-free. There is no sense that this is limited to men or any being. It says he, but you just swap the pronoun and you're, time to dedicate merit, which is a practice in itself. Make a wish, send it out from on top of Turtle Mountain. Our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. And from where we're sitting, can make 3 half bows. I will bring up so we can all actually bow to the screen if you care to do so, because we'll bring up Guanyin Posa. There she is. Okay. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, that's going to do it for us for tonight. Amitofo.
Amitofo.